So were there specific problems? Oh man, there were many project problems. You can think about the beast from the east. You can think about the deluge of rain and water that followed the beast from the east that Paul was actually rained off for nearly a couple of weeks. You can think about the baking hot summer that we've had and Paul and his team working in temperature up to 35 or 36 degrees in the garden. So there were plenty of challenges for Paul to have to deal with. But also then as we started work and we started digging, there were lots of springs that we identified. And in fact, there were 5 new springs that we had to deal with as part of the work that Paul had to do. I'm very pleased to say that we were able to get, he was able to get his arms around all of the problems. And actually the garden that we've got now, I am very confident is probably as good as we can get, particularly as it relates to the drainage. This is a very wet area on clay, and there was lots of liquefaction occurring as Paul was digging out the garden. But actually we've got pipes around it now and we think the water is draining away, and I expect that we will have a good winter, whatever the weather will be thrown at us. So the only challenge that we had at the end of Paul's work was the fact that we were laying the final turf was being laid in 30-35 degrees temperatures. So I felt very sorry for the team having to work for extended periods in that baking heat, but clearly laying the turf was always going to be a challenge. And although we poured copious amounts of water on it, the reality is that a number of the turfs just didn't take. They got overheated. I'm very pleased to say that Paul recognised that immediately and came back and replaced actually quite a large number of the turfs, and that has got us to a situation now where hopefully from this video you can see that the grass is now all bright and green and is growing well. So that's the only issue that we had, and Paul was onto it well before I had to raise it with him. So when it came to dealing with the neighbours, I think it's fair to say Paul was very open with all of them. He was always happy to reach out and have a conversation. Of course, in a private lane like this, there's always going to be issues when big trucks are coming and delivering merchandise that Paul needs on site. There were a couple of frictions with some of the neighbours, but I think Paul was able to deal with them effectively. And as far as I'm aware, the neighbours are very happy. So we feel Paul and his team did a great job. We are very happy to give a recommendation to others. This was actually quite a large project, and probably a larger project than I had originally anticipated when we set out. But Paul and his team got to grips with it and worked very hard through, as I've already said, some fairly changeable weather conditions. The thing that I was always pleased about is the diligence of the team. They were always here by 8 o'clock in the morning, and they worked for as long as they needed to work to get the task that they had set themselves completed. They were just very easy to work with. They're very friendly. They're very knowledgeable. I liked the fact that they came to us during the project with ideas about how things could be improved and things could be changed. And I would say pretty much all of the recommendations we took on board and we agreed with. And I think out of that has come a better garden for us as a consequence of the input from not just from Paul but from his team that they added to the debate around what we felt we wanted.